guys, I'm Crystal Sky and welcome back to Learn to Draw Weekly College Art Class Edition. So, I want to talk to you about my experience in drawing one that was a class that I took in college, and I want to tell you about some of my experiences and how it started off good and then I got really frustrated and angry and depressed and just generally it was not good. So I have been drawing for less than 2 years. It's approaching 2 years, or it might have just passed 2 years. I barely know how to draw, honestly, and I'm very down on myself when my mom tells me all the time that I'm my worst critic, but I don't know, I met a new worst critic. So I can definitely draw in a style of, I guess you could say anime and cartoony style, and I'm working to improve my realism and my figure drawing and stuff like that. And that's what I do every day. Quantity. I just keep drawing constantly, all the time. I draw for hours, every day. Just every day. And I've been doing that for 2 years. So I decided it was time to take a semester in drawing class in my college. I want to be an animator eventually, and the reason that led to that, you guys have probably seen in my other videos where I was a writer and then I decided that I didn't want to just write a novel. I either wanted to do a comic and I wanted to work on animations and cartoons and stuff like that. So that was what led me down this path. And I had never drawn before. When I was a little kid, I didn't draw, I wrote. So I'm essentially having to go through elementary level, preschool level, and middle school level, and high school level art in order to get up to my age, which is 25. I'm 25. So it's gonna take me a while. It's probably gonna take me more than 2 years, but I practice every single day and I work really hard doing it. So I took this drawing one class, and it says on the drawing thing that it's for beginners. Beginners can participate, and that's fine. So that's why I took the class. I figured it would be good for me to go into a class that could teach me how to draw better, because I go on Skillshare and I do Skillshare courses, I do YouTube courses. I am legitimately trying the hardest I can and using up all of the time that I have besides doing streaming, which is the other thing that I do, and other classes I use to learn how to draw. I'm working on a comic now, which the first page is on my Twitter account. If you want to go see it, it's the first page of It's Candy Time. It's not finalized. I put it out for constructive criticism, so if you have any constructive criticism on it, let me know. But so I meet the teacher, and the teacher is very old school. He feels very old school. He has an accent from somewhere. I'm sure he told me, but I don't remember. He went to an art school really far, like in a different country somewhere, and he came over to our country, and his wife does art, and everybody he knows does art, and you know, he didn't want his, we drew him, like a picture of him, and he said if it looked anything like him, he didn't want it out on the internet. So it seems very strange, like an artist doesn't want, like, you know, like notoriety or publication or like anything on the internet. He doesn't put anything on the internet, which just, he doesn't do any digital art or anything like that. I'm playing with my hair because this is like a really, this happened, the drama didn't start yesterday, but it ended yesterday. Yesterday was my last day in class, and I'm really happy that it's over. So just like the type of guy he was, he seemed very old school. Like I said, he learned art in a different country from very strict teachers. Apparently he went to a very strict art school, and that was where he learned art. So that's kind of like the background that he came from. I don't remember his name, because when I first saw his name when I registered, I'm like, I'm never going to be able to remember that. I can't pronounce that. So it's an unpronounceable name. His first and last name are both impronounceable, which you know, it's fine. I had a math teacher from Russia whose name I couldn't pronounce, and he told me just to call him Teach. And I did, and we became best friends, and he was fantastic. If I didn't understand something, because he had a very thick accent, he didn't know much English. If I didn't understand something, he would look it up and write it on the board, like whatever he needed. So he was fantastic. This teacher, so that's just his background. You guys need to know what I think he's coming from, or what he's said he has come from. So this teacher was unprepared, didn't help out any of the students, made students buy things that they didn't need. The school forced him to use a book. We had to buy the book, which I didn't. I rented it from Amazon for very cheap, thank God, because we didn't use it once. He said, because they made me use it, I'll make up something, but he didn't. He was like, read this chapter, and then he never checked on it. So he was very scatterbrained. He didn't have a curriculum in mind, I felt like, and he would often draw a picture for you and then like say, do it like that. So that's kind of where this teacher is. So at first, we drew objects for pretty much the first half of the semester. Objects, landscape, perspective, stuff like that. Now, I'm alright at perspective. I use Procreate usually to do perspective stuff, and it's got a perspective guide. So whenever I need to do something in perspective, I just use the guide, and it's super helpful, and everything's fine. But of course, he wanted you to do it in on paper. And the materials he chose for us to work with were 18 by 24. I must be having a party because I just heard someone yell. Anyway, so it's huge. 18 by 24 is huge. At least for me, in my experience, 18 by 24 is way too big. So I like drawing smaller, and he would not budge on the size. They're having like a party. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I'm like diverting. Anyway, let's get back to the topic. So you had to draw on this size paper, and it's huge, right? It's ginormous. So I'm super nervous about that, drawing big like that. I'm super nervous about just general like drawing and learning how to draw. I'm sorry guys, I'll be right back. This will be no time for you because editing. Sorry about that craziness outside. People on bicycles, scary things, clowns, I don't know. Anyway, we were talking about the teacher. Okay, so he came very unprepared. He didn't have a stable curriculum, and we started drawing items, like things, stacks of things, different perspectives, stuff like that. And I went okay for a while. You know, you can't really cartoonize items, at least I can't yet. So I just, you know, I just drawing the items, drawing the perspective, stuff like that. Some of the stuff, I got praised on a mannequin that we did. He said it was very, very good. He liked the depth that I added to it. We worked mostly in charcoal, and that first half of the semester ended. For the midterm homework, he did homework every week, and I try to do the homework that he did. I did all the homework, and he said I had a vast quantity, but my quality was low. So in other words, my stuff wasn't good enough for him to give me a good enough grade. At least that's what I got from it. He was nice up until this point, I'd say. I would say, oh yeah, he's a good teacher up until this point. So midterms end, and we go into figure drawing. We have a live model come to class. Now, you guys know about my new way of learning how to draw people, or how to draw people with the circular cylinder type, you know, thing. So you guys have seen that. And that's the new way that I draw people, and I went to go learn that because he didn't teach us how to draw people. What this class was essentially, from this point on, was essentially an exercise in, you already know how to draw this, I'm not going to teach you this, draw. Like, we had no preparation. I think he tried for like 10 minutes. He drew the model in front of us, and that was him teaching us. There was no explanation, no verbal, like, this is how you do. He said how high someone is, a normal person is, compared to the head, and that was about it. That was the only thing that we learned. We didn't know how long the shoulders are. And as we were drawing, he would come around and go, well, your eyes are too big, or, well, your nose is off, or, you know, he would just come around and, like, criticize everything and not tell you really, not tell you originally how things were. He would just essentially go, well, this is too big, well, this is too big, this is too small, your head's too big, or whatever, and there was no teaching. There was just, you did this wrong. Do this right next time. So I got really frustrated. We had a model for 2 days. I got really frustrated at this point because he wouldn't let me draw the way I wanted to draw. He wanted me to draw with tone, which I can do in Procreate, but I can't do on paper with charcoal. I just don't understand the concept. I can't wrap my mind around doing charcoal. As you guys saw on my Twitter, if you guys follow my Twitter, I drew a face completely in tone with all grayscale. And I think it turned out pretty good. It has a little bit of style in it, but it's not overly stylized like manga or something like that. And it's all completely in grayscale, and I think it looks great. But because I would draw with lines, because that's what I do, he got very frustrated with me. He got very frustrated, visibly frustrated with me. He kept telling me that he saw potential, but because I wouldn't draw the way he wanted me to, I was very stuck in my ways, I was very stubborn, I didn't like change, and that I should give up art. But that didn't happen until my final. So, he got very frustrated with me. That's, you know, you could tell he got frustrated with me. And when I know that people are frustrated with me, I essentially didn't listen to him for the whole next to the class. The model, the woman that we had modeling for us, saw that he was essentially bullying me and came over and warded him off, essentially, and was like, back off. Like she's doing fine. You're ridiculous. She like pulled him out of the hallway and gave him a talking to. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, that's how much she thought he was bullying me. 'Cause she knew I was visibly upset. 'Cause he would just stand behind me the whole class. Just me. There are other people in the classroom. Calm. So, I put on my headphones, and for the rest of the class, I just ignored him, and I drew whatever I wanted. I drew the model, I drew how I wanted to draw the model, and I took the technique that I learned how to draw with cylinders, and I drew her correctly, finally, after him trying to teach me how to do it multiple times by showing me how to do it. I want you to do it this way. You're not doing it that way, even if the end result is coming out in normal proportions. So, it wasn't like you're doing the proportions wrong, you know, this is too big, this is too small. This is how you need to do it this way, even if the result comes out looking fine. So, there's that. And I got really frustrated, and I ended that specific class period that we did almost in tears, but because I had my music, I was fine, because music just stabilizes me, like, stabilizes all my emotions. I feel good afterwards. So I left that class. I didn't want to talk about it. We went on and on in class, and finally the final project comes up. Now, you guys have seen my final project again if you've been on Twitter. It plays a big part in this, so I might put it around here somewhere in editing. I don't know if I can get it off Twitter and even remember to put it up, because I just feel so frustrated and upset, and I just kind of want to put this behind me. But I wanted to make a video about it. Anyway, so, and the final project was 18 by 24 pictures lined up, and then one big superimposed put over top of all those lined up pictures. Now, I had sketches, and you guys have seen my sketches in my sketchbook of what all the characters were going to look like before I did them. I had the design. I had all the characters laid out exactly as I wanted them, and they were essentially very simplified because it's 16 huge pictures and I hate drawing that big. So I decided to make them just as simple as possible. You know, like my regular just like tiny little lines for the nose here, and you know, they were almost anime style, but because most of them didn't have eyes, they weren't really considered anime style. They were just a very cartoony style that he didn't like. But I didn't know that until I presented my final. So he looked over everything because I asked for him to approve. He looked over all my sketches. I said, that's exactly the way I'm going to do it. This is the superimposed image. And he had no input. His input was, and I quote, "Ooh, this is going to turn out really good." That was his input, right? So imagine my complete terror and utter surprise when I bring my project in, I present it, and he says it's awful and I should quit drawing forever. Like, it's awful. You shouldn't continue doing art. Please don't take another college class. Legitimately what he said. So I had one of the girls come up to me in class, which I wasn't really friends with her, and I wasn't really friends with anybody in that class, but she came up to me at the end of the class and she said, well, maybe you could do it as a hobby. Do you know what art is? She did a Mario thing that he said he loved. Out of everybody in the class, I was the only one to get a wave of negative criticism. Essentially, mine was just awful in every way and should be thrown away, while everybody else's was great. She did Mario, which again is in a cartoony style, but there wasn't any characters. She did Mario levels, and while it was really cartoony, he liked hers, but he didn't like mine. Which was a complete shock, again, to me, because I showed him exactly what the characters would look like, and if he had a problem with it, he should have said, no, I want it more realistic, or no, I want it more my style, or I don't think that's going to work, or, you know what I mean? Like, instead of coming up to me and saying, oh yeah, this is gonna look really good when it's done, and then leaving. Like, I got his approval, and I worked on it in class for several days. Like, we worked on it for like 3 weeks in his class. But mine was awful, and I shouldn't have even done it. Like, so, after feeling like absolute crap, because that's what this man-child said, because I didn't draw in a realistic way, I guess, you know, I felt like crap, because, you know, he told me not to ever take another college class, and I wasn't, this is not art, this is not my field, you should gather these up and send them to a publisher. Like, do you understand how publishers work? Because you don't. In order to get anything published, you need to have either a completed manuscript or like something completed to send into them. I can't just take these pictures I did for art class and send them into a publisher for them to make a book. Like, that's not how it works. So I think that was his way of like trying to not sound so mean, was, oh, you could send this into a publisher, oh, gather these up and send them to a publisher. That's exactly what he said. But this is not art, this is not in my field, so I can't really judge it, is what he said. Anime's not art, guys, neither is cartoons. But Mario's fine, because Mario's like a legitimate. I feel like if I had taken characters from a show or something like that, it would have been better. If I had just done fan art, it would have been like fantastic. Because these characters all came from my brain based on runes, so it wasn't alright. Or like the concept was more to his liking. Anyway, the chair almost fell back because I got really upset for a second. Okay, so that was the end of my class. That was finals day. I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me what you think. Give me some negative feedback. I'll post a picture somewhere on here, over my face probably. But I went on Twitter and I vented, and I quoted what he said he went over mine the longest, I feel like. He went over mine the longest because he gave me a really long lecture at the end of going over my final as to why I would pass his class, but I should not take any more college art classes because what I do isn't art. Which is funny because he approved the style. Like, if he had come up to me and said, you know, you need to do more realistic faces, or I need you to do something more with tone, or this is the specific way I want you to do things, I probably would have done it. Like 100% would have done it. He approved it. He came over and said, yeah, this is gonna look great when it's done. And then I just want to scream. I'm frustrated. I feel like I want to punch a wall. Like, communication is not that hard. It's really, really frustrating when someone communicates with you and then flips completely and says something completely different. So, that was my class. That was my experience with my class. I gave him a silent middle finger when I was out in the hallway before I left. I will not be taking any more classes with him, with the guy whose name I can't pronounce. He made me feel like nothing. And he did it in front of the entire class. So, and then the other kids essentially told me I was nothing. Because he gave me that lecture in front of the entire class. From that point on, whenever I tried to speak up because he wanted everyone to do a class discussion, which, by the way, on my piece, there was no class discussion. At the end of saying what he wanted to say, he said, okay, on to the next one. With all the other ones, he said, okay, what do you guys think? Because he wanted class discussion. Anytime after that I tried to say anything, he cut me off. So I don't do art, so I don't have an opinion on anybody else's piece. Like, I couldn't say anything nice or negative. Usually I was the most talkative one in his class. 100% I'm just a very talkative person. Hello, YouTube, streaming. I can't stop talking. Even when I'm not talking, if I'm working on something and my brain is elsewhere, I'll be singing just to myself because my mouth is always moving. But he cut me off essentially every single time, which to me definitely says, well, your opinion doesn't matter, you don't do art. Like, why are you here? Get out. I felt very unwelcome. I was very close. If it hadn't been the last class, I would have left immediately after that. I didn't even want to talk to him after that, you know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to leave. But because it was the last class, I kind of had to stay there until the end. So I took my project down, I took it home, and he gave me an 88 overall in the class. That was my overall grade. And like, how can someone's opinion change of you so much? I know you don't like my style, but you approved my style. If you had told me, no, that's not what I want, I would have done something else. Like, that's why I went to you for pre-approval. Is so that I wanted to know if that was alright. If it was alright if I did a kind of animated style. The answer was apparently no, because, you know, that's not what he wanted, but he told me yes. So, like, I worked really hard on this project, which some of them turned out simple because I didn't have that much time. Like, 18 by 24 pieces and they have to be completely detailed and stuff like that? No thanks. I'm just gonna do really simple images so that I don't have to work without sleep for a million years. I also had a really long 10-page history paper to write, and I have a math final to study for, which I have a private tutor to study with because I'm awful at math. So I just wish he had told me what he wanted and not been a butt about it, like, at the end. But I saw some people on Twitter. They didn't specifically give their support to me, but I was scrolling through Twitter and this came up. Someone who worked on Spider-Man posted about how his AP art teacher made him drop the class because what he did wasn't art. And this came up in my Twitter feed at, like, right after I had posted my rant video, or my rant tweets, and it was like, Twitter, are you spying on me, Twitter? Do you know what's going on? I think Twitter knows what's going on. But anyway, so yeah, he works, I think he works at Disney now, which, there goes my brain popping out all over the floor. So essentially, I won't take this to heart. I mean, that night, I finished my It's Candy Time page 1. So it's not like I stopped drawing. But it was a very frustrating class. It was an awful experience. I feel like I shouldn't be an artist anymore. Like, artist, I probably can't say that about myself anymore, or like, you know what I mean? But everyone in that class has been drawing since they were a little kid. At the beginning we talked about our art experience. Every single person in that class has been drawing since they were a little kid. I started when I was 24. Like, I started right at the end when I was 23. What at the end of 23? So I think December 23? Because I turned 24 in December. I don't know. I started not too long ago. I did not draw when I was a little kid. And it's very insulting because I feel like I can draw with tone and I can draw a little bit more realistic now. It's very insulting to tell me that I'm not an artist because of a style you approved. You approved that style for my final. And then you said it's not art, so it doesn't count. Like... Alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this rant video was so long. If you have any questions about this crazy teacher, besides his name and his information, I will let you know. So just leave it down there where the words are, and I'll answer you, because I answer everybody who comes on and says hi, because you're all fantastic and I love you guys so much. You guys have given me so much support where I have literally been roadblocked for what feels like my entire life. People telling me how awful I am, and I'm just starting out drawing, and how I should quit because what I do is not art. And the neighbor came over the other day and said, wow, that's bad, but I hope you get better. Like, every turn in my real everyday life, I feel like people are telling me, just stop. Don't try anymore. You're done. You're not good. You've been working on this for 2 years, you should be a professional by now. And that's not how art works. You gotta work hard, you gotta try, you gotta learn, you gotta practice, and people have been drawing all their life. I've been drawing for 2 years. It's not fair to me to tell me that I should be at a level I'm not. The neighbor girl, who helped me with my final, really liked my final. She's fantastic. She is a fantastic artist. She's also younger than me, but she's been drawing for a lot longer. Her older sister draws. Art is just something her family does. She's been doing art since she was a little kid. She's much better than me, and that's how it should be. She's been practicing for much longer than I have. So she's better than me. And it's a crime that she's not selling her art because it's fantastic. It's fantastic. She doesn't think it's fantastic. Just tell her. I wish I had her Instagram, because I'd be like, go. But what I'm trying to say is, you guys help me feel better about myself, feel better about my progress, and feel better at my art. So thank you. I'll see you guys later. We're going to talk about clay next time. I got some air dry clay, so this is coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be releasing It's Candy Time onto Webtoons very soon, and I'm very nervous about it. So if you have some hugs, just throw the internet hugs to me. I need the internet hugs. I haven't felt this depressed and bullied since I was in middle school. When I was in middle school, I was bullied constantly. It was just awful. The teachers were also bullies to me, and it was just an awful experience. And I haven't felt this bad since then. So this teacher has made me feel just awful about myself. If you guys want a story time about that, I might do one eventually, because that was crazy. My life is just full of people who want to bully me. It's fantastic. But I'm gonna keep it good. They're awesome. I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.